You are listening to the Yummy Mummy Podcast, episode number 182.
Welcome to the Yummy Mummy Podcast, where you will learn brand new and shockingly different tools to lose weight for the last time. And now, here's your host, certified life and weight loss coach, Laura Conley.
Hello, Yummy Mummies. Welcome to the podcast. We have a very special guest. I feel like I've been in a season of having really special, awesome guests, and it just lights me up because I personally love hearing people have conversations, and I love having conversations versus just talking at myself for an hour. Although I do love making you guys those episodes. So before we dive into the episode, I want to encourage you guys to go to lauraconley.com and get on a call with me. We have never done this before where I'm opening up coffee chats. So if you are interested in just learning a little bit about what the Yummy Mummy is and if it's right for you, I have opened my calendar for the entire month of May. So you can hop on there and we can chat about, hey, would the Yummy Mummy be right for you? What are your struggles? What are some tools that you can start implementing? So go to lauraconley.com and click work with me if you want to book a coffee chat. Okay, without further ado, let's welcome my guest, Priyanka. She's been on the pod before. You guys might recognize her. So Priyanka, give us a little intro about who you are, what you do. Tell us about your family, where you live, and then tell us a little bit about your personal struggle with weight loss.
Thank you, Laura. I first have to say, so I also love these kinds of podcast conversations, mostly when you find two people that are so passionate. There's something about it that I just gravitate towards conversations like that when people are passionate about what they're talking about, which is what I love about you. And I'm sure if people don't know, you and I have been friends, I think since like 2020 or something like for multiple years. And I have been on the podcast before and you've been on my podcast. We did a little group call, I think it was last year, and it was so much fun. And anyways, I love you. I adore you. And thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we were talking about the power of community, I think, last time.
Right.
And you guys, I just hired a podcast coach, which is super fun. And I think what I'm supposed to do is tell you guys what we're going to talk about, which I totally forgot to do. We're going to talk about procrastination and how that can show up in weight loss and in you achieving or not achieving your goals. So I just wanted to give them that little carrot.
That's so important. Yeah. Like, what are we even talking about today? Yeah. Why are we so passionate about this? So if you are new to me or if you don't know me, hello, I am Dr. Priyanka Venugopal. I'm a board certified OB GYN physician turned stress and fat loss coach for type A professional working moms. You know, when I really think about my journey, I would say up until 2018, 2019, I had a very similar story to probably many of you that are listening, which is I had been on the weight loss struggle bus, or we can call it the roller coaster. We can call it the merry-go-round. We can kind of whatever label you kind of feel resonates with you, where it was an up and down experience, but also was a slow creep up. So while it was a roller coaster, it was not going back down to what it used to go back down to. It was a roller coaster that kept trending upward. And I had a serious moment. This was after my daughter was born. My son was 3.5 at the time. My daughter was born. She was like 6 months old, and I crossed the 200-pound mark. And there was something about that moment, you know, when that third digit changed, that I felt like I had this wake-up call that I am sitting here in my mid to late 30s. I have worked so hard my whole entire life to get to this point, you know, medical school and residency and early attending life and handling these 2 kids and having the perfect, you know, schedule for my family. And I'm looking around and I'm like, is this it? Like, I worked really hard, and is this it? I'm feeling so uncomfortable in my skin. I'm feeling so frustrated with the fads and the diets because I had tried all the things, right? Like what you've talked about, calories and points and exercise 6 days a week and like don't eat a piece of cheesecake, all of the things. And I just felt so frustrated. So I remember that was really the moment that I had an awakening, which was if being smart was the solution, I would have solved the problem. And I think many of us listening to this podcast, probably I'm a smart person, right? Like we have figured out so many things in our life, yet like this thing is the one thing that has kind of gotten away from us, or the thing that we feel we have a struggle with. And that was when I realized it's not smarts that was going to solve this problem. There was something else there. And that was when I really started to do a deep dive. Number one, I discovered coaching through a podcast like this. And I just went down the rabbit hole. And that was when my eyes started to open around the science of fat loss, the science of stress, and not understanding the science of how our brains are working is getting in the way of hitting our dream body goals.
Yeah.
And so I started to really incorporate a lot of that into my personal life. I started to really burn stress at the root, and not a surprise, burn fat at the root. And I lost a little over 60 pounds. And then a few years ago, I decided to leave clinical practice and I created the Unstoppable Mom Brain. And now I'm on a mission to help other professional working moms have the same.
Oh, that's so good. Okay. Can you talk a little bit? This isn't procrastination related, but I think it's really helpful. Can you talk a little bit about being an OB and like, all right, I could see myself like 10 years ago, I go to my doctor and I'm probably frustrated in the appointment because I'm on the same struggle bus that you were on. And I think so many of us look to our OBGYNs for advice. And I wonder, like, did that ever show up in your practice? I think we turn to our doctors oftentimes, but they don't necessarily have the answers. And so I just wonder if you could speak to that a little bit.
Absolutely. This is such a good question, Laura. Thank you for asking this. I did see it all the time. I think, I had a little bit of this, I don't know if embarrassment is the right word, but I was an overweight physician. I was an overweight OBGYN. And so I want you to think about like the picture, right? So patients coming to me talking about their struggle with their weight, and here I am struggling with my weight. So first, I want to start by saying that physicians, as much education as they have, they're also human and they do have their struggles. And you don't learn in medical school what we teach in coaching. You don't learn emotional resilience. You don't learn how to burn stress at the root. In fact, in medical school, what I learned was just work harder, just work more, just push through your fatigue, push through that stress you're having because you have to get the A and you have to learn these skills to be a good physician. So in fact, not only did I not learn the skills that, we talk about in coaching, but I learned a lot of the opposite. A lot of my habits came because of my training. And so I just want to start by saying, your physician is a human too. And I was, again, an overweight physician, which just says a lot. So that's the first thing.
I just want to also just highlight there, because I think it's so good. It's like, we've been brought up in diet culture, and then so many of the career tracks that we choose then promote hustle culture. And like those two together are a recipe for disaster, right? I'm going to go on Priyanka's podcast and we're going to talk about having fun, losing weight. I think that's what we're going to talk about at least. And
it's like, so good.
It's like diet culture and hustle culture put together. It's like, well, you can't possibly have fun because that's not going to work, right? And so I think it's so ironic, like push harder, do better, all the things, come on. And then you feel even stupider. Like, I don't know about you, Priyanka, but it's like, okay, now I have all this training, all this education. I've gotten through medical school, residency, and I still can't. Like, I know for me, I would feel like so ashamed. And I feel like so many of us are doing that to ourselves unknowingly. And it's not our fault. Like, I just want to say that, like, it's totally not our fault. It's just like the air that we breathe. It's like the water that we swim in, being in hustle and diet culture.
And like, I also just want to say, if anyone has ever, because I've heard my clients tell me this, like, I know what to do up here, right? Like, I know what to do, but I'm just not doing it. And what I want to always offer is, again, this premise of it isn't your fault, because the modern industrialized food industry has crafted the perfect bite. They have crafted the perfect crunch to taste ratio to light up your brain. So we have to acknowledge that didn't exist 50 years ago. You're not just weak or incapable or have no discipline. You just didn't understand that there was a science in your brain that they have been basically using against you. So I just have to say that, like, it's never your fault. But kind of coming back to your original question, I think, and this is probably what even prompted me to leave clinical practice and become a coach, but so many of my patients between the ages of 35 or after they had their first baby, I would say 35 to 55, would come in with the most common complaints would be fatigue, weight gain, and low libido. And here I was as a physician. So I want you to kind of like, and I kind of want to paint the physician side of it. My roster of patients was not dictated by me. It was dictated by an office manager, by administration of how many patients I had to see in a given time period. And I'm trying to get through patient after patient. And again, my approach to medicine has always been very holistic. Like, I'm trying to see the person as a whole human and not just the breast exam, not just the belly exam, not just the heart and lungs, but I want to hear about you as a human. And I think as a physician, what we try to do and what we're trained to do is to help the person in front of us to the best of our capacity. And it's virtually impossible in a 20-minute annual visit or in a 20-minute GYN complaint visit, or maybe if you're a new patient, 30 minutes, to cover all of the things that you deserve as a patient to be heard. Like every patient deserves to have all these problems met, but it's like this mismatch. I call it like the big mismatch of what physicians want to do for their patients and what they have the capacity to handle.
Yeah.
But I would say it was a huge complaint. So fatigue, weight gain, and low libido. And what I would find myself doing, especially before, and this is before coaching, is how to really help address a lot of the root problems for why are my patients fatigued? Why are they having weight gain? Why are they having low libido? And it's often because they're putting everyone else and everything else ahead of themselves. And again, this is something that's taught to us by society, the patriarchy for what it means to be kind of a working mom, to be a woman, right? And then I think after becoming a coach, I started to really see so many common threads on tendencies that women had that was really holding back a lot of their results. So it's one of those things where you try to address it, but I'm also here to address people's medical health. And so it was hard to do.
I think that what you're saying is just proving that we all need a coach. Like we need a coach. Our doctors can't be responsible for everything because of the system. It's really like the system. It's not the doctor's fault. It's really our system. And so it's like, you need a coach.
If you're coming for an annual, physicians are seeing you once a year. If you maybe have a problem visit, you might come back in 6 weeks or in 2 or 3 months. But what we're talking about, I think with coaching, one of the hugest differences and the biggest impact is having somebody in your corner in real time that is helping you in real time. There's nothing that compares to that. A physician can't do that, right?
It's not even their job. It's just, it kind of falls on them because we're not trained to hire coaches, right? I think that's a huge kind of hump for us as professionals is like to train our audience that like we all need coaches. Like I just watched myself the other day. We hired a financial coach and really a financial planner and advisor. And it's like for 10 years, I've had like Save X or Do by Will or do all the things that are involved with what we're going to do with our financial planner. Right. And it's like, it's been on my list. Like I've known that I should be doing it, but I couldn't get myself to do it until I hired this financial planner / coach. Right. And because I just thought, well, I've read the books, like my dad's a financial planner, like I should be able to do this on my own. Like I'm not an idiot. I know how to press the buttons in like fidelity.com, but unless I have a coach, I'm just not going to do it. To your point about having those regular like accountability is huge. Just having someone in your corner supporting you is huge. And doctors cannot be responsible for that. So anyways, I know that's a bit of a tangent. Let's go, unless you have something to speak on that.
No, I think that that's such a valid point. It kind of goes back to the whole, like just being smart enough doesn't actually move the needle. Just being smart enough does not do it, right? So I think it's really understanding that there's a strategy to taking action. And again, you don't see what you don't see, right? Like you don't see your blind spots in a way that you on your own, the way that you would.
Yeah, I think this conversation has really like, it kind of made me go, oh, because I've always said, if you feel like all the things and you can't get yourself to do them around diet, nutrition, or whatever, it's because you don't have the mindset, which I still think is true. But just talking to you right now, it's also because you don't have a coach. Like it's really that simple. And I mean, you and I obviously both teach mindset and, like you said, emotional resiliency. So talk a little bit about how procrastination can show up in weight loss and maybe throwing in the towel. And we said before we hit record in a little bit around like hiring someone to help you. So this is kind of a nice dovetail because I think a lot of us do procrastinate. I mean, I know I have. So I did for like 20 years.
So I think that that's the thing. And this is kind of a part of the intention of what I even wanted to share. I think especially for professional women, procrastination can be really sneaky. It's not always, so sometimes it's like what you think of it as, right? Like you're scrolling Instagram instead of like working on your work project, or you're like binging Netflix, right? Rather than like answering your emails at work or something like that. But what I found in a lot of my experience, because I never really thought of myself as a procrastinator. I never thought of myself as a perfectionist. Like I never identify as these labels because I'm like I'm getting through, right? Like I'm actually getting through my day. I'm getting the groceries. I'm paying my bills. I didn't think of myself in this way, but I would say when we really kind of peel back the layers and take inventory of what has really been in the way between me and my dream goal, my dream body goal, for me to lose the weight, what is actually, if you had to map out a course and there's a finish line, what have been the obstacles that have been in my way? I think when I kind of look back at that, the number one reason is some flavor of procrastination. And I think it's important to kind of see where procrastination comes from. I know for me, I didn't identify as a perfectionist, but it comes from, I call these like secret, not so secret definitions of perfectionism, because perfectionism it's not someone who always gets A's. It's not someone who's perfectly organized. It's not somebody who gets results faster. It's not someone who's more efficient with their time. Because that's what I thought perfectionism was.
Yeah, it can show up that way, but it can show up in so many other ways too.
Right. So what I found for me, and this was kind of my own, why did I ever get to 200 pounds? Why did I ever struggle with weight? For me, the real definition and how it applies, I think for a lot of professional women it is waiting to feel a certain way, waiting to feel more confident, more certain, more comfortable before you take action. So we want our conditions to be a little bit better before we take action. So this would look like, I want anyone listening to this to be like, where does this show up in my life? This will look like you wanting to research a little bit more, or you'll find yourself planning a little bit more, making another to-do list. You are someone that maybe loves a good fresh start. You love Monday morning. You love the first of the month. New Year's is like a high. You get a high on New Year's Day. You are someone that thinks often like, you know what, when enter season of life I'm in, when this season of life is over, then I will take action. So when the kids are a little bit older, when this tax season is over, when summer vacation is over, when the holidays are over, then I will start taking action. You might be someone that ruminates a lot on making decisions. So either to make the decision, you'll ruminate a lot. You'll think about the pros and the cons of what's the best strategy, or you'll make a decision and then you'll second guess it. You'll make a decision like, she did it. Was this the right decision? I don't know. Maybe I should go back. Maybe I should make this decision. Maybe I should do it a different way. You're someone, this is the one that is, I think, true for a lot of us. You don't just procrastinate with Instagram and Netflix and just like TV. You procrastinate work. So you will find other tiny tasks that are deemed productive instead of doing what you should be doing. So maybe rather than planning your meals for the next day, you start cleaning the kitchen. Or you start making your laundry list of to-dos that you need to get done by the weekend, rather than taking care of the goals like that would move the needle for you. Another one that is huge, I think, is I was mentioning you make to-do list after to-do list that creates a lot of overwhelm. And because you're procrastinating or procrastinating, you have now more to do the next day, and then you try to overwork. So now you're trying to make up for yesterday's delinquency by overworking. And then this ultimately leads to getting really mean, self-criticism, because you're just not getting done what you said you were going to do. So I think if we took a solid inventory of how this is showing up for women across the board, especially moms. Listen, if you're listening to this podcast, you're likely a mom. You're amazing and probably doing multiple things. I want you to just think about how and where is this showing up? Because if it's showing up in one area of your life, one corner, it is probably showing up in lots of little ways and lots of corners. And it is going to be the reason that you don't hit your goal this year.
Yeah.
So that's like, when I really was like, why have I not, I know what to do, but I'm not doing it.
Yeah,
it
I
is
love
because
that.
I kept waiting for myself to feel better, for me to feel more comfortable to take action. And it turns out that there's literally no such thing if you have a big goal.
Yeah, I think that's such a good question of like, okay, first of all, like, where did you identify with the things that Priyanka listed, but also what's happening in that gap? You have this goal, like, why haven't you gotten there? And can you answer that from a place of curiosity and love? I think that's super helpful.
Yeah. And I think this kind of leads me to, because I don't want anyone to take this list and now villainize and use it to like shame themselves.
No, it's actually great information. Like, it's just like, yeah, it's like know thyself. It's like, look back. And I mean, I teach a concept called look back with love. And it's like, we're missing out on the gold, on like one of our mutual friends calls it like the buried treasure. Like we're missing out on it if we don't look back, but we're so trained to look back with shame and to look back with just so much judgment. And it's like, I always talk about like my kids, right? Like my son's learning to ride a bike. He falls off the bike. He doesn't make it mean that he sucks at life and that he's a failure and that he's never going to ride a bike. He's just like, oh, made a mistake. I went up on the curb instead of staying on the sidewalk. Great. I won't go up on the curb next time. Right. It's like, how can we be that light with ourselves and that kind of open with ourselves? I mean, you can even take yourself, for example, like I always use like the skiing analogies, but like we're getting into pickleball, right? And it's like, I kind of suck at pickleball. I mean, I'm kind of good too, but
I'm not surprised.
Better than all our friends.
I'm not surprised you are. Yeah.
I mean, I'm a little competitive.
Just a little.
But,
oh my God. Can I just say, Laura is the most competitive person. We were playing board games at like some event and like, I cannot even, I think I might have, and I'm not a very loud person usually during board games, but you brought the loud, so then I was bringing the loud. And like, I think I lost my voice the next day because it got competitive really fast. And I'm not, and I told him like, I'm not even that competitive, but like, I mean, that was good fun.
Yeah. I'm so competitive with board games. I'm a maniac, psychotic maniac. But my point is like, if I miss a pickleball shot or like I don't get the taboo word or whatever, it's like, I don't make it mean anything, right? If you're building a skill like pickleball or skiing or riding a bike or whatever, if you make a mistake, you're like, oh, I'm a beginner. And it's like, we don't think we're beginners at losing weight because we've been trying for 20 years, or some of us, maybe not so much. Because I do get clients that like, it's just become a problem, and I'm sure you do too. But my point here is like, this is a new skill. We actually haven't learned how to lose weight permanently. We actually haven't learned how to heal at the root. So of course we're going to.
But this is the other reason that we'll procrastinate. So I think I'm so glad you brought this up. So one of the biggest reasons that we haven't already hit the goal, if you're really being curious about it, why have we hidden from the data? So maybe last weekend you didn't follow your quote unquote plan. Maybe you gained a pound. Maybe you had a girls trip or a vacation. You come back and the scale's up. Maybe you don't even weigh yourself. You don't even weigh yourself because you're hiding from the data. That's a form of procrastination. And the reason that we are doing that is because we are so afraid of the judgment and the criticism that we are going to feel, self-inflicted, by the way, that we hide from the data. We hide from, I wonder what it was that made me overeat. I wonder what it was, because we just literally have not trained ourselves to talk to ourselves in the kindest way. And that's, again, it's just another habit. This is actually the work of Brene Brown. She talks a lot about if you just do better, we learned perfectionism is actually if you just do better or you are better, that somehow you will avoid judgment, shame, and criticism. When in fact, all that it's doing is like adding this 20-pound backpack to your journey, right? It's like, no wonder we have to keep taking breaks from weight loss because we've made it really heavy.
Yeah. We've made it mean so much about who we are and whether we're good or bad or right or wrong or successful as a person or a failure as a person. Yeah, it's so true. And I love that you brought up Renee, because I actually think if we can get ourselves to look back at our quote unquote mistake or whatever, if we can learn from the girls' trip when we ate off quote unquote plan, the shame kind of starts to go poof. Especially when you talk about it with a coach or you write it down, it starts to go poof because shame hates the spotlight. Like it can't live in the spotlight. It really does start to disintegrate when you look at it.
Yeah. And this is like, why are we ever hiding? Like, and I think that this is, I want to also normalize, like, even to this day, I will hide from results. Like, it's not something that necessarily has to go away completely. You don't have to recover. I think that's really important to kind of note. You don't have to recover from perfectionism or recover from procrastination. It's just getting to know your tendencies, getting to catch, oh, this is me hiding. This is me hiding from myself. Oh, that was me being mean to myself. Just getting to catch it gets to become the greatest like the greatest discovery of how you're going to be with yourself. And guess what? If you're a mom, you get to pass that on to your children. My daughter is now, she's 5.5. And there's one thing, which is lip service. Like I can tell her, be nice to yourself, be kind. She's like really into soccer right now. And when she misses a goal, she gets really like, she makes a face and she stamps her foot. And I'm like, I could just tell her like, it's okay. You'll get it next time. But if I'm not doing that with myself, I'm not modeling that behavior, she will not learn it. She'll be like, yep, mom said a good talk, but I don't believe her.
Yeah.
So if you want your children to believe you, you have to go first.
Yeah, I think that's so good. And I always talk about like, I really want us as moms to pass down like a legacy that we're proud of around the way that we see our bodies and our weight and our relationship with food. But really what I'm excited about is like the ability to pass down unconditional love towards ourselves, which is what you're saying, right? It's like, I think that's what unconditional love is like making a mistake or missing a goal and being mad or disappointed for sure. And then loving yourself in that mistake. And it's like, that's the best gift that we can give to our kids, our sons and our daughters, but kind of especially our daughters, because if we don't, it can show up as like martyrdom and victimhood. And we just continue this legacy around like, we have to be the ones to do everything and we have to do more.
And a topic I've been getting, actually I've been talking a lot about this with my clients is like, there's going to come a point when your children are going to have thoughts about their bodies. And, maybe you'll go to your pediatrician and your pediatrician might tell your kid like, hey, we have to really pay attention to how we're taking care of our health because obesity is not just an adult thing. Like it starts at a really young age. And how do we want to frame the conversation where we're not villainizing our body, where we're not shaming our body, and also really teaching our children healthy conversations around bodies and nutrients. And I think this is like just a conversation that if we don't feel comfortable having, how are we going to have it with them? So many of my clients, like, how do I talk? I don't want my child to think that I don't love them because of their weight, or I don't want my child to think this, right? So we do that by us doing the work first, which I think is so essential.
Yeah. Oh, it's so true. I know people will ask like, oh, can you teach a workshop on how to talk to our kids about their bodies or food? And I'm like, yeah, the workshop is like, it's an inside job. Like the workshop is, you have to do it first. You have to be the one. And what I think is so cool is like, then as like, for me, it's not really that hard for me to naturally teach my kids about food and nutrients and their bodies because I'm so grounded in my beliefs around it. It's like, it's really easy for me to teach my kids about relationships with other people because it's an area of my life that I'm very grounded. I know what I believe. I know what I think is right and wrong. And again, with food and bodies, like there's a spectrum. There doesn't even have to be right and wrong. But it's like, I think when we go down a self-discovery process and really are willing to look inside and ask ourselves questions and find, okay, what do I believe about food or my body or the way my body looks? It's like, it's just so natural to pass it down. So yeah, we kind of got on a tangent. Is there anything else you want to say about procrastination?
Yeah, I think that my kind of mission is to help everyone that's listening just start to identify if you could plot a course and your dream ideal weight is waiting for you on the other side of this course, what's gotten in the way? And again, asking it with so much love and so much curiosity and compassion and patience and gentleness, it will be some form of procrastination. There is no life, no matter what, you could tell me anything. There's literally no life circumstance that ever should drive us to overeat. It actually takes more time. It takes more energy. It takes more effort to overeat than to not. So if that was really the case, the only reason is because of some form of procrastination. How is this showing up in my life? And I think that when we identify that, you get to start doing the work, hire a coach and find someone to help you overcome that obstacle.
Yeah. So it kind of begs the question. I love the definition that Elizabeth Gilbert has around perfectionism. She's like, it's just fear dressed up in a mink coat and heels, right? And I think that's probably part of the reason that we procrastinate is because we're scared that if we do take action, that we're going to fall on our face and that we're going to make it mean something negative about ourselves. So I just wonder if you could speak to why as humans do we procrastinate?
Yeah, this is so good. So this actually touches on even like, how do you start to handle it? How do you navigate that moment?
That was my next question. Then once we know our patterns, like, well, what do we do about it?
So this is really good. So starting with the first one, like, why do we do this? Why do we have perfectionist tendencies? Why do we have fear of failure? Why is it that we ever procrastinate on something that we know we want? And it comes down really simply to our most primitive reflexes want us to choose the lowest effort option. It's just that simple. Like, it's bajillion years old. This trait, this characteristic that we have wants to choose the lowest effort option. So if there's a part of our brain is thinking, this is going to take a lot of effort. I might fail. This is going to take a lot. Like, our brain has created, I call this, a lot of convenient stories. I call this the 3 C's. Our primitive brain is really good at coming up with convenient, compelling, and convincing stories. Telling you they're going to sound like facts in your brain. Like, if you're a mom, you might have thought like, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. You might have told yourself that that's a convenient, compelling, and convincing story to keep your status quo. And the reason that we do that, why are we keeping our status quo, is because our primitive brain wants to expend zero effort. So this kind of leads me to, what do we do about it? We have to decide that our goal, that dream body goal, is worth us putting in a little bit of effort. Is worth us challenging our convenient, compelling, convincing stories, because it matters more to us than our status quo. And I think that there is fear there. There is fear there. And I think what I found kind of time and time again is the solution to this is you set a goal, you find a strategy that you really believe in, and please let it not be a fad, something that's backed in science, and then you take scary action. This might be like a bitter pill for everyone to swallow. Like, there's going to be some like rainbows and daisies way of doing this. No, you have to feel courage, feel brave, and you take it feeling scared, doing it messy. Plan for it to be messy in advance, and then decide how you're going to treat yourself on the way.
Yeah. I love that, because courage is not like the absence of fear, right? Courage is taking action when there is fear. And I think that's so brave. And people are like, yeah, I want to feel brave. Yeah, I want to feel courage. But like, feeling courageous in your body actually sucks. Like, it's not a very fun feeling. If you're
people say that, they say that,
you're
but
willing
they
to feel
really,
it, you'll get what you want. Yeah,
that's right. So like, when people say, "Oh, I want to feel brave," what they really want is to feel confident. What people are saying they want is, because confidence feels really good. Confidence feels really good. Courage feels like crap.
Yeah.
So what we're actually saying is, "Oh, I want to feel courage." No, what you're saying is, "I want to feel confident." But what we have to choose on purpose is, it turns out that because I have not created this result yet, I probably have a pile. If you have been on the merry-go-round roller coaster, right, that we talked about, you likely have a pile in the past of many attempts and many fails. And so it makes sense that your brain's like, see, we haven't done it yet. We might not be able to do it. This is why you need courage, because you're not going to have confidence. You haven't done it yet. Yeah. You have to take courageous action to have confidence.
Exactly. That's exactly how I wanted to end this piece, is like, the good news is, like, you can use it as a carrot. Like, if you are willing to be courageous, that will build the confidence, because you've taken the action then, and then you can see that you didn't die.
And it's like, I could do this. Yeah.
Yes. My coach, Brooke Castillo, talks about like, courage leads to capability, which leads to confidence. And so if you don't want to be courageous, but you want your result, use it as a little carrot. Use it like, okay, well, if what I want is to feel confident, the only way is through courage, and then capability, and then confidence, which I think I know my clients come to me and that's what they talk about over and over and over again. Is like, that's what we really want. So many of us.
And we're a little addicted. Listen, especially with my clients, and I've coached now professional women for hundreds of hours. And the one thing I know is we love feeling confident. We've become a little addicted to feeling confident, likely because it has created results. Like, when you think about school, your training, like feeling confident was a good thing. You want your physician to be a confident physician, right? So it's been rewarded in so many subtle ways that we have really attached, like, it's good to be confident. And I think what we're talking about is like, actually, what if in the absence of confidence, it's like, it's not a bad thing to not be confident. You don't think that nothing is going wrong if you don't feel confident yet.
You can't feel confident unless you take action. So I think that can help get through the procrastination. Okay. Anything else we can do when we're noticing we're procrastinating? We're noticing, this is a tendency of mine.
Yeah. I think that's really like the very first thing is actually to just become aware. So many times we are procrastinating. We don't actually realize it because it's so subconscious. Our brain, as brilliant as she is, has created a bajillion habits, subconscious habits that are actually driving procrastination that we're not aware of. So the very first step is just to become aware and like call it out, right? Like actually name it. Like, this is me. And with love, right? Like, this is me procrastinating. This is me procrastinating. And just becoming aware, it's like, it just changes the whole picture, because now it's not in your subconscious anymore. So once you've seen it, so you can't unsee it. Like, this is me doing that thing I do. Yeah.
I want to add there too, because I love what you said, like, become aware without kind of beating yourself up. And if you guys can push it even farther to like a party or a celebration, like because awareness, I hate awareness. I don't like the word. It doesn't sound fun to me.
So we're going to have you on my podcast. You're going to talk about how to make it fun. Okay. I love it. Yeah.
I'm just like, when you catch yourself having that moment where you're aware, like, my knee jerk is to be like, I'm doing it again. It's like, no, it's like, oh my God, yes, I found it. Like, I want you to get so excited in that awareness moment. Like, I always say, like, can you turn it into a dare? Like, can you dare yourself, like aware to dare? Like, can you dare yourself to actually be excited in this moment? Because I think it'll lead, I don't know what you're going to say for step 2, but I think it'll make it easier to get to step 2. So keep talking.
I love it. So I love it. We're going to have to talk about this one more.
Okay,
so the second step for me would be, what emotion am I avoiding? What am I actually avoiding? Like me putting this off is my again, it's remember, I have a convenient, compelling, convincing story for why I'm doing this. Where's the effort? There's a part of my brain that's like, it takes a lot of effort to what? Feel what emotion. I think that's so important. And then the third step is to do it anyway. And the doing it anyway is not coming from a place of willpower and like muscling and forcing yourself. This is that piece of courage. Like, I know this feels really, like, think about how loving it is to say, like, the tone and tenor of that conversation. Like, I know this feels really uncomfortable. I'm going to do it anyway. I love myself so much. I'm going to do it anyway. It's like such a different experience to take scary action when you talk to yourself like how would you talk to your kid? My kid doesn't want to go to school. Like, first day of school, we moved to a new town last year. It's like, I don't want to go to school. And I'm like, I get it. I know you don't want to go to school. I get you're scared. It makes so much sense to me. And we're going to go to school.
Yeah.
Right. And also, like, it's such a different conversation than to try to shove the kid onto a bus, shove them into the car. Like, it just doesn't work.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. And it's not fun. I mean, yeah, I think it's so true because I think so many people feel like, okay, well, I can't lose weight because I just don't have the motivation, or I do have the motivation for a week or 3 days and then I lose it. And you're speaking to, you don't actually need motivation. You need courage. You need awareness, right? Like, you need to put in the effort when you don't want to.
Yeah. And people, I think, have this idea that like motivation is going to fall out of the sky. Yeah. And I think this is one of those things, like, how do you take action without feeling motivated? And also, how do you cultivate motivation on purpose? You have to be thinking about your goal every single day, why you want it, why it's worth you doing what you're doing. That's how you actually create motivation. I just think it's like, it's so fascinating how our brains are going to be like, let's just not do it today. Yeah. Convenient story, my friends. It's a convenient story. Yes.
I know. Okay. Anything else that you feel like the people need to know before we wrap up this really fun, awesome episode?
I think that the last piece, and this is the step that I think my clients probably skip a lot, they just move on to the next to do, is when you have done the scary action and you've proven to yourself that you're capable, to sit with that for a minute and be like, I just did that. How amazing am I? Like, I didn't die. It wasn't actually that bad. Actually, it was pretty cool that I did it. And to prove to your brain that you are actually safe in taking these scary actions again and again and again, you just build a new muscle in your brain. But that's a step that I think a lot of women who are like, it's done, I need to get
the next thing.
On to the next thing. They're skipping that step. And I think that that's kind of an essential piece to cement new habits in your brain. So
yeah, I totally agree with that. Like, I call it like over celebration, like really relishing and reveling in the moment because we're so trained. Okay, on to the next thing. That wasn't that good. But to your point, that's actually what strengthens the muscle because you're proving to yourself, oh, I do know how to do this. Oh, I can do this, right?
And this tastes better than a cookie. It tastes better than a cookie. When you're like, oh, I just did what I said I was going to do. It tastes better. It tastes so much better. But I think we skip that step. We forget about it.
So good. Okay. Yeah. How do we find you, Priyanka?
Yes. So I am the Unstoppable Mom Brain everywhere on the internet. That's me on Instagram. That's my website. And I have a podcast, the Unstoppable Mom Brain podcast, where I talk about a lot of the stuff.
I love it. Okay. Yay. Thank you so much for coming on the pod. This was so great. I love you so much.
Love you back.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Have the best week ever. And pretty please, with the cherry on top, share this episode or an episode that you love with one of your friends and leave a rating and review. You have no idea how much that helps in terms of the Free the Moms movement, because that's what we're doing here. Okay, I love you. Hey, if you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, I would love it